Hey man, Jim Wolf here, and welcome to step 3 of the formula, how to keep a woman in love with you. First of all, if you manage to allow her to fall in love with you, great job. It's a really rare experience for women, and a lot of women are not in love with their boyfriends or husbands because they don't know or apply the 4 elements that we talked about yesterday that cause her to fall in love with you. So if she is in love with you, great job. And in today's training, we're going to talk about how to maintain that love as long as you want. Whether you want to be with her for 50 or 100 years, or you want to date her for a while, if you do the things that we're talking about today, she will stay in love with you as long as you want. Love doesn't fade over time. That's a complete myth. And her love for you will never go away if you apply the 4 elements we're going to talk about today. And just a quick note before we get started, just keep in mind that these are not the elements that make her fall in love with you. Okay, so you only apply them after she's already in love with you. These are the things that maintain that love once she's already there. And we have to get her to that point first by applying the 4 elements that we talked about yesterday. So now, once she's completely in love with you, then we switch to long-term relationship maintenance, and that's what today's training is about. And there are 4 elements that keep her in love with you once she's already there. And they are not the same 4 elements that make her fall in love with you in the first place, that take her initial attraction and increase it and turn it into love. These are 4 different elements from the elements that we talked about yesterday. Now, some of these concepts you want to apply from the very beginning, from the first time you meet her, for example, respecting her in a general sense. Okay, but just keep in mind that these 4 elements don't raise her interest in you. They just maintain it once she's already there. All right, so let's get started with the 4 elements that keep her in love with you once she's there. And the first one is positive attention. And this is the most important element when it comes to maintaining her love for you. Okay, and I'm going to give you 3 ways you can start applying positive attention in your life starting today. And the first one is continue to date her as long as you're with her. This is the biggest mistake that I see guys make when it comes to maintaining a woman's interest in him. Okay, once they get in a relationship or they get married, they get really busy, they have other priorities, and they stop taking a woman out. Okay, and if you want her to continue being in love with you, you have to keep taking her out. Make it the same priority level as a business meeting at work, because it is if you want her to stay in love with you. And if you don't want to keep dating her, if you don't want to keep taking her out, then maybe you should think about if she's really the right partner for you. Okay, so the most important thing that you can do when it comes to maintaining her interest is take her out for a fun time once a week or so, as long as you're with her. Okay, and when you take her out, you don't want to talk about serious stuff. You don't want to talk about the bills or your stress at work or your horrible boss or her horrible boss or whatever it is. You want to have fun with her and keep it light, no matter what else is happening in your life. Okay, and it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It doesn't have to be a long date. You can take her on like a 30-minute hike. You can go grab coffee or ice cream for a few minutes. Okay, it just has to be something fun that you're doing together with her on a regular basis. And I don't care if you have 12 kids and 3 jobs and so does she, you have to find a way to do this if you want her to stay in love with you. That's the bottom line. All right, I recommend to my guys that they take their girlfriend or wife out at least once a week for 30 minutes to an hour at least. Okay, and if that's not realistic for you at all, then at least take her out once every 2 weeks, and I would never go more than a month without taking out your girlfriend or wife for a really fun time. Okay, and a couple of more keys to taking her out. Number 1, you're still the logistical coordinator. Okay, so you still plan the date, you pick the day and the time and the activity, and then you ask her to go with you, just like you did in the beginning. So you keep planning everything and just inviting her to go with you. That's your job. You are the logistical coordinator. Okay, and then number 2, as often as possible, try to have a new experience for both of you with her. Okay, sharing new experiences will keep your relationship fresh over time. And again, it doesn't have to be something that's really expensive or extravagant or take you really far away from your home. Okay, just try to have a new shared experience with her as often as possible and take her out once a week and never go more than a month without taking her out. And again, if you keep taking her out regularly and she's already in love with you, that's going to maintain her interest over time. It's the most important thing you can do. So definitely do that because it's much better to be with a woman who's in love with you versus one who's indifferent. All right, and then number 2, when she wants your attention for a second, give it to her. Okay, so if you're sitting next to her on a plane and she's looking out the window and she taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, check out this thing out there," then just give her your attention for 1 second, take a look at it, and respond. Don't ignore her or be mean to her when she's asking for your attention. Okay, and the same thing if you're sitting there watching Netflix or you're watching a game or you're playing a video game or whatever, and she comes in the room and she's like, hey honey, check out my new earrings or whatever it is, or check out my new shoes I just got. Okay, just stop what you're doing for a second, pay attention to her for just a couple of seconds, and just say, oh, those are amazing shoes, honey, they look great. Okay, and then you can go right back to Netflix, right back to the game, or right back to playing your video game. Okay, but when she asks for your attention, be positive and give it to her for a couple of seconds. Doesn't take that long, but these little things go a really long way when it comes to maintaining her love for you. Okay, she's going to feel really good about that. Now, if she wants to have an important, serious conversation with you about something and she wants your attention for that and you're busy doing something, just pay attention to her for a couple of seconds and say, hey, I really want to talk to you about that. Can I come find you in 20 minutes and we'll sit down and talk about it? Okay, so just give her those few seconds of attention anytime that she seeks it from you. So that's number 2. And then number 3, actively point out anytime she does something positive. So it's really easy to see negatives in people, okay? But you have to actively create a positive relationship with her. And one of the ways that you can do that is when she does something that you appreciate, tell her about it. Hey, I really appreciate that you took the kids to school today. Hey, I really appreciate that you made dinner last night. Hey, I think it's really cool that you put $100 in our joint account today. Thank you so much. Okay, so when she does something positive that you appreciate, let her know. Make that your habit. It might be hard at first, but just make it a habit over time. And when it comes to maintaining her interest and having a good relationship with her, the presence of these kind of positive behaviors that you actively create is more important than the absence of negatives. Okay, so creating these positive things is more important than never having anything go wrong or never making any mistakes. So actively create a good relationship with her by doing these little things. And then also, when you point out the positives to her, that's going to make you like her more and make you more satisfied. Okay, so it serves both of you when you give her positive attention. So the first element is positive attention. And the second element that keeps her in love is respect. And we all kind of know what respect means, so I'm just going to give you 5 ways that it applies specifically to the woman that you're dating. Okay, number 1, never yell at her. Okay, there's never a reason why you want to do that. Of course, again, you want to be able to disagree with her and stand up for yourself, but there's never a reason to kind of raise your voice and yell at her. Okay, you can be forceful and direct and not yell at her. Okay, so you don't want to yell at her. You definitely don't want to do anything physical to her, and I shouldn't have to say that. And if you have kind of an anger problem like that, just get it handled before you get into a relationship. Okay, so if that's where you're at right now, you're probably not ready for a relationship. So don't yell at your girlfriend or wife. It's going to drive her interest down over time. Okay, and then number 2, don't check out other women when you're with her. Okay, so when you're out at a restaurant, don't check out the waitress, even if she's super hot. Okay, I know that can be really difficult for guys. It's something that I've struggled with before, but just make it a habit when you're with your girlfriend or your wife. Don't look at other women. Now, subconsciously, as a woman, she already kind of knows that you're probably going to keep being attracted to other people. Okay, that's just the way human beings are. Just because we're in a relationship or married or in love with someone doesn't mean that once in a while we're not going to find another person attractive. Okay, so she knows that. But it's you paying her respect when you're with her that you don't notice the other women around. Okay, so make that a habit. Whatever you have to do to make that a habit, when you're out with her, don't check out other women. Just be there with her. Okay, and then number 3, when she has an idea that you think is silly, don't tell her her idea is silly. Okay, that's a lack of respect, and again, that's going to drive her interest down, and we want it to stay really high. Okay, so when she has an idea that you think is silly, instead of saying that, just say, oh, that's interesting, we'll work on it together. Okay, you want to support her. Even if you think her idea is silly, who cares? You're there just to support her. Okay, you're her boyfriend or her husband now, and it's her idea, and it's something that she's being vulnerable about when she's sharing it with you, and you can really hurt her if you put her down when she has an idea. Okay, so just support her in her ideas. Who cares if you think they're silly? It doesn't make any difference. Okay, so don't call her ideas silly. Instead, support her in whatever she thinks of. Okay, and then number 4, don't try to change her. You get what you get when it comes to a woman. Okay, so if you've dated her for about 2 years, that's about enough time to actually evaluate whether or not she would make a good long-term partner or a wife. Okay, and by then, you've kind of seen her whole personality. All right, so it takes about 2 years to really get to know a woman, and at that point, You know enough to make a decision about whether or not you want to keep dating her or to marry her. Okay, and once you make that decision, you get what you get. Don't think that you're going to change her down the road. Okay, women tend to think this way a little bit more often, but guys think this way too. Whatever your partner is now, you have to accept her exactly as she is. And if she's not good enough for you, exactly as she is right now, then break up with her. Okay, don't try to change her because that lack of respect will drive her interest down in you as well. And then lastly, number 5, listen to her without trying to fix her problem. Okay, now sometimes she will want you to help her solve her problems, but most of the time, most women just want to solve the problem themselves, and they do it by talking about it. Okay, so when she's talking about one of her problems with you, that's her way of kind of working it out. She does it by talking mostly. So your job is just to listen to her and say, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I can see that. Just kind of have a supportive conversation and don't try to solve the problem for her. Okay, unless she explicitly asks you. So if she says, hey, what's your opinion on this? What advice do you have? Then you can, of course, give her advice. But don't give her advice unless she asks for it. Just listen to her and say, you know what? You're an awesome girl. You're really smart. I'm sure you're going to figure it out. Hey, you know what? You're a super intelligent woman. I know that you're going to find a solution to this. And then if you want to, you can say, is there anything I can do to help? You can always ask her that. But don't just offer her unsolicited advice. It's disrespectful. Okay, so listen to her without trying to fix her problems. Okay, and so that is the second element, which is respect. And then the third element that maintains a woman's love for you over time is teamwork. Okay, and I don't have to tell you what teamwork is either. It's pretty obvious. And how it applies to the context of dating a woman is that you want to be with someone who wants to work with you, who has a giving personality, who enjoys doing things for you. Okay, and then you want to work with her as well and not take advantage of her. Okay, so you want to choose a woman who wants to be on your team, and then you want to be on her team as well. That's what teamwork means when it comes to a woman, and it's one of the 4 things that maintains her interest in you over time. And I'm going to give you 5 quick ways that you can apply teamwork to your relationship starting today. Number 1, once you get to the point where you're living together, sit down and explicitly map out your responsibilities. So talk with her about who's going to make dinner or get dinner, who is going to clean the dishes, who is going to sweep the floors and do all the housework, who is going to mow the lawn, etc. Map out your responsibilities together and make a plan that works for both of you. And then if one or both of you isn't happy with that after a couple of months, then adjust it again. And I know this might not be the most fun thing to do in the world, but sitting down with her for a few minutes and mapping this stuff out and making it really clear what's expected of each of you is going to save you from having a lot of other problems down the road. And it's going to preserve her positive feelings towards you, which is the whole point of what we're talking about today. Okay, and then number 2, make her look good in public. Show her you're on her side when you're out with your guys' friends and your families and stuff like that. Be on her side and support her in public. If there's something that she's doing that you don't like, wait until you get home to talk about it with her. Okay, so don't embarrass her in public. Always make her look good in public and then have your conversations with her in private. And then number 3, when you have a big decision coming up, talk to her about it first. Okay, don't just decide something that's big that affects both of you and then expect her to go along with it. Okay, always talk about your big decisions with her before you make them. And then number 4, accept her. Okay, support her exactly how she is. That's what teamwork means. You know her strengths and weaknesses and you're just going to be a supportive teammate. Okay, and then number 5, in a similar vein, don't try to be her psychotherapist or her dad or her son or her coach or anything like that. Okay, you want to be her lover. You are her loving teammate. You see her as an equal teammate and you treat her as a teammate. And you treat your relationship like you guys are on a team together. So think of your relationship like this. Instead of 2 enemies who are fighting each other and facing each other, you're 2 teammates that are facing the same way and you're looking out at the world together. That's how you want to see your relationship, and that is the 3rd element that's going to keep her in love with you over time. And then the 4th element that keeps a woman in love with you as long as you want is positive humor. Look, life is tough. Things are going to happen. Even if you and your girlfriend or wife are both awesome people and you have a great relationship, things are still going to happen. Okay, life is messy. And having kind of a positive, light outlook on life, not taking yourself too seriously, not taking life too seriously, is going to provide a protective buffer for your relationship. Okay, so you should expect that things are going to go wrong and try to maintain a sense of playfulness no matter what. Okay, that's a huge gift that you can bring to your relationship. And again, it's going to help her maintain her interest in you over time as well. Okay, so try to stay light and playful as much as possible. Now, if you use humor the wrong way, it can also be a negative. That's why it's called positive humor and not just humor. Okay, so we don't want to use humor to avoid serious issues. Okay, so if there's something that you have to work out with her, don't use humor to avoid that. Confront her and have that conversation with her as two adult teammates. Okay, so you want to talk to her like an adult in that situation, and you don't want to use a lot of humor. And you also don't want to put yourself, her, or anyone else down. Okay, that's negative humor use, and that's going to erode your relationship over time. Okay, so being light and playful makes your relationship better. Putting other people down or yourself down or her down and using humor to avoid talking about things that you have to talk about is going to be a negative in your relationship. So we want to use positive humor, and I'm going to give you 5 ways that you can do that starting today. Number 1, cut the self-deprecating humor. Okay, this also applies to the raising her interest stage. Okay, you don't want to make fun of yourself and have her laugh at you. Okay, you want her laughing with you. Okay, now once in a while you can do it, but cut it out because it just shows that you have low internal value for the most part. Now again, if you do it once in a while to kind of cut the tension, that's fine, but don't make it your default setting to make fun of yourself. Okay, because that just erodes your self-worth and it doesn't make you feel good, and over time that can actually lower her interest in you. Okay, because she wants to be with a guy who values himself. Okay, so start valuing yourself and cut out the self-deprecating humor if that's something that you use right now. Okay, number 2, it's a really good idea to keep playfully teasing her as long as you're with her, but it's never okay to actually criticize her or put her down using humor. Okay, so cut the sarcasm. That destroys relationships. Okay, so it's one thing to playfully tease her in kind of a fun way, and it's another thing to completely put her down or insult her. Okay, so cut that out if you're doing it. Okay, and then again, number 3, like we just talked about in the intro to this element, don't use humor to avoid important issues. Okay, if you want to confront her about something, do it. If she wants to talk to you about something, talk to her, engage her. Okay, so we're not using humor to avoid, we're using humor to provide a really positive buffer that protects your relationship. Okay, and then number 4, laugh at her silly jokes as often as possible. Okay, if you don't find her funny, that's going to erode her interest in you over time. Okay, so if you have to force it, just laugh at her silly jokes. It's not a big deal. Okay, just have fun with her. Lighten up a little bit. Women like men who are light and free and playful. Okay, now that doesn't mean that you're not masculine. It just means that you have a really good attitude when it comes to life. And by the way, that also will help you be more successful in other areas of life as well. So if you're taking life or yourself too seriously right now, stop doing that. Okay, and then lastly, number 5, have as much fun with her as possible. Okay, fun is one of the things that's part of positive humor that maintains her interest over time, and it's related to continuing to date her as well. Have fun with her as much as possible. Keep a light, playful atmosphere in your relationship. Again, life is already challenging. We want your relationship to be a positive that adds to your life, not something that makes it even harder. Okay, so for the most part, stay playful and light in your attitude and be with a woman who has a light, playful attitude as well. If you both have really good attitudes, you can go a long way and you can deal with a lot of challenges. If one of you has a bad attitude, over time, that's going to be a huge problem. Okay, so if you need to, adjust your own attitude. And I'm not saying like overly positive thinking or all this other stuff. Okay, I'm saying in general, relax. Don't take everything too seriously. Don't take yourself too seriously. Build your inner sense of security so that you can be light and playful and then be with someone who has a really good attitude toward life as well. And if you do that and you give her the 4 elements that we talked about yesterday in the beginning stages, and then once she's in love with you, you give her the 4 elements that we just talked about today, she is going to stay in love with you as long as you want, and you're going to have a great relationship with her. Now, of course, there are other things that you can do to build a good relationship with her, but these 4 elements today are about her feelings towards you, about how much she feels that emotion of love for you and attraction for you. Okay, so that's what we're talking about in this program. And that's the number one factor in the quality of the relationship that you have with a woman. Okay, so her emotional interest in you is the number one thing that matters when it comes to the quality of your relationship with her. And the 4 elements yesterday are what take that level of interest and raise it to what we call love. And the 4 elements that we talked about today will keep that level of love at a constant rate for as long as you want. Okay, so always keep in mind that this is the foundation of your relationship with a woman, the way that she feels about you. And now you know exactly what it takes to make her feel that way about you. Now, if she's in love with you and you don't apply these 4 elements, and because of that her interest starts to slip down below what we call love, you'll have to go back to applying the 4 elements that we talked about in yesterday's training that raise her interest back up. Okay, so if her interest in you falls below what we call love, go back to what we talked about yesterday and start applying the 4 elements that cause her interest to go up again. Okay, and if her interest goes all the way down to 0 where there's absolutely nothing left, unfortunately, there's nothing that you can do in that situation. And that's something that a lot of relationship experts don't acknowledge. The way the woman feels about you is the number one factor in your relationship, and if her interest in you reaches 0, nobody can bring it back. There's absolutely nothing that can be done. Okay, but if she still has a little bit of interest in you left, and you start applying the 4 elements that we talked about in yesterday's training again, it will raise her interest in you again. Okay, so that will work if she's still interested in you. Okay, now the best thing to do is just to have her fall in love with you and then do the 4 things that we talked about today that maintain that love over time so you don't have to build it back up again. That's the easiest way to have a great relationship with a woman. We don't want to have to keep building her interest up over time. We want to do that once and then maintain it as long as we want to be with her. Okay, so that's what this whole training just taught you how to do, and this is the end of the formula program. I hope you got a ton of value out of this program, and I trust that you'll take action on all the tips that we shared. And if you didn't decide to join us yesterday, go grab your copy of the complete Attract and Keep Her system right now to make sure you know exactly what to do from the very first moment you meet a woman until you decide she's not right for you or keep her for life. We go even deeper into the 4 elements that cause her to fall in love with you and the 4 elements that keep her in love so that you'll always know exactly what to do. So join us inside the Attract and Keep Her system right now to make sure that you can be with the women that you really want to be with and that you never get broken up with or divorced by a woman ever again. Just click on the link below this video right now and you'll be taken to your private discount page. I'm Jim Wolf, and I'll talk to you later. Cheers.